Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Pretty Suited Podcast. I am your host, Lauren A., and this is where we discuss personal development through a cultural lens. Now, if you're a follower of Pretty Suited, you can see something has changed just a little bit. I got my braces off today, so I have a lot to smile about. So prepare to be sick of me. I am going to be Steve Harvey cheesing from moving forward. So excited. But anyway, today I want to talk to you guys about a song that just came out. You ever had one of those songs that you heard it for the first time and you were like, I think they're talking about me. I think this was written for me. And that's how I felt about this new Kash Doll song that came out over the weekend. Well, officially came out because she has been teasing the song for the past couple of weeks now. But anyways, and that song is Niggas with Money. I felt like initially the way the title, reads is you kind of expect that it will be on the same kind of playing field of a city girl where they are talking about men with money, right? It's a high likelihood that that would be the topic of conversation. But not with my girl Kash Doll. Okay. One thing I can say about the artist Kash Doll, which if you're not familiar with her, I don't know how, she is one of the ones that I think centers her conversation in a different way. She is a Detroit rapper, which, if you know, most Detroit women have a certain swag to them. They have a long history of just carrying it a certain way. Their fashion, their style, their attitude, very go-getter, very hustler mentality. And Kash Doll fully embraces this persona. And in this song, that is no exception. Kash Doll brings up several points that I feel a lot of women today really can relate to. I like to really talk about personal development in a sense that how we've evolved as a community over time and how we can continue to evolve. And in this song, she discusses a lot of what we've been talking about when it comes to women taking on more responsibility, having more responsibility, just that, just purely off of us pursuing different avenues, being business owners, having our own, real estate, having our own homes, taking care of the family, becoming matriarchs. All of these things that the late 20 to 30 something to 40 something woman is really grappling with as we are growing older. And the conversation stops becoming so centered around men and their likes and dislikes, as well as what we can do for them. But the conversation starts to switch towards what we can do for ourselves. So while it has the same vibe and energy of a good old fashioned twerk song, I think it holds a little bit more power when it comes to what it represents. And so anyways, Kash Doll, she is not new to this type of content. As we became introduced to her, I mean, I could only speak for myself. I became introduced to her back in like 2018 when she came out with that song For Everybody. I had no idea who Kash Doll was. I had no idea where she came from. I wasn't even too familiar with rappers, particularly female rappers, coming out of Detroit anyway. And so when she came to the scene, I was like, okay, I guess this is how they give it up in Detroit. So first of all, it took visuals from one of my favorite movies, which is Belly, directed by the famous and wonderful Hype Williams, who, his directing style was definitely innovative and it changed the course of time, right? But anyway, she took scenes from that movie and made it into her music video. So she got me with that alone. So from then on, I said, let me just keep an ear out on what she's doing. And over time, she's put out, amazing hits such as, the 25, not 25 Commandments. It's called the Cash Commandments. She came out with Ice Me Out, several other mixtapes, but then she just recently blew up as well with the song she has with 42 Doug called The Thick One. That is everywhere, from basketball games to streaming to, just background. Like, that has been on every TikTok and reel. So she's really has been on a continuous wave for the past few years, and I'm proud of her. I can appreciate some of the content that she puts out. Maybe not all of it, but most of it I can, get with. But I also am proud that she is one of a woman of darker complexion who is still highlighting her sex appeal, as well as her hustler mentality, as well as her, personality. She seems like she's funny. She takes her hair seriously and the growth and the healthiness of her hair seriously. I just like the persona that is Kash Doll and what that means. Women who have a hustler's ambition or any type of ambition, 9 times out of 10, they are ridiculed for having that ambition. They're ridiculed for their go-getter mentality, for their work ethic, for their ability to kind of navigate and maneuver through situations to get things done. We see characters like this in movies where we may applaud them initially, but you kind of hold some resentment for that person for going after what they want outside of the male gaze or outside of the male's influence. And so in this song, she's saying that you can't hold your money over my head. Like, I think a lot of times we fall into conversations how money is used to manipulate people to do things that they want them to do, whether it is voluntary or involuntarily. Right? Some people can be put in desperate situations and somebody will hold some money over their head and then coerce them to do something. And a lot of women and men operate from that standpoint. What I think this song is doing and what we should continue to do is remove that stipulation from the conversation so that way we can have a real talk about why I'm here. Okay. Like Dominique Morgan says, imagine, right? I have all capacity to do the things that I need to do for myself. I have the intelligence, I have the passion, I have the connections, I have the drive, I have the dedication, I have the resources to get what I need without your influence, without your money. Because for one, 9 times out of 10, you're a terrible person. The one who always wants to dangle the carrot of some money to keep you around, that person's not a good person, right? If you have to hold that over my head in order to keep me here, what does that say about you and why I actually want to be here? So in relationships or dynamics where that is the case, imagine a person having all the things that they need to succeed on their own, and they decide not to go along with you and to go at it by themselves. I think that that's fantastic. Because if I actually do decide to stay here and be with you, that's because I want to be here, not because I need to be here. Because we constantly have conversations too about feminism and the independent woman and all the things. And I even on this right here podcast said that we may have swung the pendulum. I can't even say it. We may have swung the pendulum, far to the right where we're hyper independent, right? But then we don't want to swing it to the other side where we're codependent. So we really do need to find a happy medium. But what I encourage all people is to make sure that you have your own. If you are stuck in situations where you're not able to maneuver without someone, I would consider that to be a dangerous place to be. I'm not saying that you are never supposed to accept assistance or help from other people. I will never say that. I think that that's what community is about. People helping each other in order to get to where they want to get to. But when I see situations that person is obligated to the other person due to what they have done for them, or they can't make the independent decision because they are so attached to that other person's financial resources, that's where you land in a dangerous space. Because unfortunately, now you're not operating out of choice. You're operating out of desperation. So like I said before, I can appreciate her not necessarily tailoring this conversation around scamming or any other kind of thing that we see a lot of songs talk about where it's like manipulation, but more so, I am bad enough. I am amazing enough that even if you decide to spend money on me in this relationship, it's because you want to. It's because you see my greatness and you want to do these things for me, not to manipulate me or to keep me bound or whatever the case may be. And I think that's how the dynamic should work. I feel like women have been afforded the opportunities to go after things and to have their own fortitude to learn more, to do more, to see more without the direct tie to a male. And if you decide to partner up with a person, then y'all just doing it to complement each other as opposed to one relying on the other one. And I feel like this kind of ties into the conversation of what the independent woman really means and where that comes from. So I read a little bit about Kash Doll, and I read that she is one of 6 kids. And then I could be completely wrong, but this is what the Google say. That she is one of 6 kids, and she's actually the eldest of 6 kids. And so being the eldest daughter or the eldest child, having to help take care of your siblings, there's a conversation on Threads right now talking about what the side effects of being the eldest child mean, particularly the eldest daughter. Right? If your eldest child is a daughter and she is the one who helped raise the younger siblings, that woman is going to be a certain type of woman. She has the history of being somewhat of a motherly figure to her siblings. She has sacrificed a little bit of her life and her time and her energy, or the things that she wanted to do for her siblings. And don't let it be a situation where it was a single mother or an absent mother, and she had to really put her own upbringing on pause to raise other people. That's a different type of person. That person is more inclined to be more independent and more of a maternal figure than somebody who was taken care of all of their life, because that person knows what it takes to sacrifice. And if you're raised in that type of environment, it gives you just a different skill set that a lot of people aren't exposed to maybe until later on in life. Now, I'm not saying that that's a good thing, because I really do think a lot of children were robbed of their childhood because of the responsibilities that they had to take on as they were helping their parents raise their siblings. I don't think that that's right, but it's a reality. So when that person grows up, they become a bit hyper independent. They become a person who you have to check on them because they're never going to tell you how they really feel. They end up becoming the person who works 2 to 3 jobs in order to make sure that everything is straight, because they don't want to deal with poverty anymore. They have poverty trauma, right? This is the type of person that if you're not a person who is true to your word, that they don't trust the situation anymore and they're more likely to leave. Am I talking about myself? No. Anyway, but yeah, that's the case, because I need to find a place safe to land. And if you aren't that safe place to land, this is not a place I need to be. And I think, Kash Doll always kind of gave me that persona that she was that eldest daughter that had to do what she had to do to get what she had to get. Right. And I know that she has some kind of history of exotic dancing or whatever the case may be. Now, whether that was tied to her, hustling to get what she needed for her family, then I'm not quite sure the timeline on that. But most dancers that I know or I'm aware of usually had to do it because they had a goal in mind and they were working towards that goal, and they used their means to work towards that goal. But at the same time, that I think that also influences her music. She makes those type of records because she knows what type of music those dancers want to dance to. So it goes hand in hand kind of with her history and the type of music that she makes. For the content that she raps about, it's not prolific Lauryn Hill, Rhapsody type of lyricism. Don't get it twisted. But For the content that she raps about, I think that she does put some effort into formulating a narrative around her. And I like the narrative. I feel like the narrative is don't play with me. Don't play in my face. I got money to make. Okay. And if you want to come along for the ride and spoil me and treat me like a girl, then so be it. I accept that because I found a safe place to land. And I think that I can identify with some of that personally. And I know a few women who can too. And speaking of women from Michigan, shout out to Claressa Shields for winning her latest boxing match. She's another woman who kind of carries that same Detroit energy where she's like, I'm not afraid of anything. I'm here to be the best. I'm here to win. I'm here to maybe try to be stylish along the way. And this woman is extremely talented. She's extremely accomplished in the things that she's doing. She's, become, I think, the first Black woman or the first woman to win a gold medal in the Olympics and boxing and just all of the accolades that she has done. I don't think she's lost a match yet in a professional title. And that should be applauded. The type of bravado, kind of going back to the conversation of bravado and how that can carry you. You need that type of energy in order to succeed in these spaces. It wouldn't behoove Claressa or Kash Doll to minimize themselves, to play the damsel in distress, or to play themselves small in order to get what they need. These type of women need that bravado in order to succeed in these male-dominated spaces. And if you don't have the street smarts or the, confidence in yourself, you can get really, really manipulated and taken advantage of. And nobody wants that. But the one thing that I will say about Claressa, unfortunately, is that, her relationship, her personal life has kind of overshadowed her accomplishments lately. She's been fighting since she was a young teenager or a young girl. Then she's kind of had to make a lot of sacrifices in her life. And unfortunately, you might miss milestones like having a real serious relationship. And I'm not saying that this relationship she's currently in is her first, but a lot of the actions that she does, it kind of gives off that this is something new and exciting for her, and she just wants to share it with the world. But it's unfortunate though that sharing of news overshadows the accomplishments. And I think that's where us as women try to find a balance of being happy about the love that we're finding and the relationships that we're in and the families that we're starting, but then also taking our careers seriously and making sure that we're not defined by, certain things. And so I think that that's a tough battle to face sometimes, but we have to find that medium. Because we don't want to, all the hard work that we've done, one simple tweet or one simple, argument in public with your spouse can now just completely throw away all that you worked hard for. I don't know. I just think that, that could be played a little bit differently for Claressa. And I'm hoping that she finds that balance. But, regardless of the fact, you cannot deny that this woman is one of the greatest boxers of all time. And you cannot deny that Kash Doll is not a talented rap artist. But it's just a matter of, allowing these women who've had to overcome such obstacles in their life, allow them a place to feel safe. Allow these women a place to rest their heads because they've worked so hard for so long. I'm sure they're tired. Honestly, I think carrying all this for so long, it becomes second nature, but you want to rest. And it's not too many people, I feel like, that surrounds them that allows them to rest. And I think that that's unfortunate. But I appreciate the music. I appreciate, giving women the confidence to go after their dreams and their goals. I appreciate them, making sure that dark-skinned women are seen in a positive light and a feminine light. but then also have enough smarts and hustle and ambition to still be the best at their craft. Shout out to all of that. Anyways, if you have the time, check out Kash Doll's new single. Run it up. Run it up, because we need a little bit of an anthem right now when it comes to stuff like that. So, of course, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe this video. And as always, you cannot manifest the life you feel like you don't deserve. So create the life that you want and look to the sky for grace. Bye-bye.
For all that life has in store, health, culture, and more.